Angela from the website naturallivingalchemy.ca. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is the first in a series of videos covering the doctrine of signatures, which is the language of nature. There are a few different layers to the doctrine of signatures that I'm going to attempt to share with you over the series of the next few videos. And I'm going to be sharing this so that you can build a foundation that you are invited to build off of. And just keep in mind that no part of this is more important than the next. In this video, we are going to be exploring color and leaf shape. The next video is going to be on the sensory experience and environment. And then next, after that, we're going to be going over organ and disease signatures. So that by no means encompasses all of the doctrine of signatures, but it's a good foundation. So why don't you go ahead now and just subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of those. Before we really get into the meat of what I want to share with you, so I don't forget, I need to share a little bit of a disclaimer with you. I'm not a doctor. None of what is on this channel is medical advice. And always be sure to consult your doctor or pharmacist before adding any type of healing protocols into your regimen. Now that we have that out of the way, I would like to share a little bit of a quote with you from one of my favorite books that I will share with you in a moment. Specifically, one of my favorite books on the doctrine of signatures. But it says, like colors, shapes, and other characteristics in the plant, share those same or corresponding colors, shapes, and characteristics in the body. That which looks like a body part or disease in the plant cures that body part or disease in the animal or the human. I just think that that very, very beautifully sums up the doctrine of signatures. Each portion of the doctrine of signatures that I will be covering is open to your interpretation, which is actually pretty neat if you ask me. So one thing that I've learned that I would like to share with you since walking along this plant path is you must approach all of this equally from your mind, from your heart, and from your gut or intuition. Each of them will actually give you a different piece to this puzzle. Now, we can get caught up in the this plant is good for that mentality, but that is simply the surface of the amount of information that we could be getting from the plants around us. We do not need another allopathic approach, and in my opinion, the this is what this plant is good for mentality actually is. Now, I'm not saying this to discredit any herbal books, but what are you going to do if you don't have your herbal book handy and you need to make a medicine? What's your plan then? So if we were to approach a plant and ask, what can you do for me? Well, we could do that. Or we could approach the plant and ask the question, how is this plant reflecting me? Okay. Keep in mind, last week I did share the map of creation. So maybe go take a look at that again if you need a little bit of a refresher on that. So through learning to read the doctrine of signatures, you're going to be able to go into any forest or anywhere plants are growing and in any part of the world and find the remedies that you're looking for. Now, a handy book that I got our little quote from is this one. It is The Language of Plants, A Guide to the Doctrine of Signatures from Julia Graves. Now, I will have this linked in the description box below if you want to grab your own copy of it. But as you can see, there is a lot that this author has written on this subject that goes into far more detail than what this video does. But that's okay. That's okay. We need to start somewhere, and I don't think that me telling you all of this information is going to do anything but overwhelm you. So also in the description box below, I will have a full written blog article that is just going over the information that I'm sharing because perhaps you're like me and not only do you like to just kind of watch it in a video form, you also like to read along and learn that way. So both options are available to you. So instead of assigning jobs to the natural world, what would happen if we learned to listen to the messages that the plants are already giving us? It's said that when Source created this world that we find ourselves on, they stamped each plant with a signature to inform us of their purpose. Okay, so hopefully you can see our presentation on your screen. So we are in the Doctrine of Signatures, Introduction, Color, and Leaf Shape. One way to read the signatures of a plant is to notice any color that is present. And we're going to approach this from a couple different angles. So the color qualities are ones that we can feel subjectively. So think about the calming feeling you get from the color blue, or maybe you feel a little bit of a fiery ignition of passion by the color red. There is a lot written information out there about color theory and color therapy that you can find with a simple internet search. But I'm going to lay some of this out for you now. So, our first slide here. We can correlate the colors of a flower to the chakra systems. So, we're going to just start with the crown. Color represented here is white. And the body part that this is governing is the central nervous system. Next, we have the third eye, which is violet, and that is the nose, ears, and sinuses. Think for a moment. The third eye chakra, what is this covering? Your nose, ears, and your sinuses. Okay, move down. Our throat, that's the color blue. The body part there is the throat and chest. Moving down to the heart, that is green. The body parts there are the lungs and the heart. Moving down, solar plexus, this is yellow. Our body parts are the stomach, the liver, and the gallbladder. Moving down further, we have the sacral chakra. The color there is orange. And we have our sexual organs and the small intestine. And finally, out of the chakras, at least the ones in the spinal column in the body, we have the root. That is the color red, and that would be the bones and the blood. So the first color we're going to talk about is black. Now, there are not many all black flowers, but what I want to bring up about black is its symbolism here. So the example that I have brought up for this is the black-eyed Susan. Now, what would this possibly be a signature for? Okay, well, if you look at the plant, it has a black center and it is surrounded by these yellow florets. So the signature here is this plant actually helps us shed light onto the darkness at the center of our being. Otherwise, we could say that this plant helps with blind spots. Okay. Like I said, we're going to use our imagination here and just see what is the symbolism of the natural world wanting to tell you, because it is full of symbols for us to decide what they mean, to determine what they mean, and to discover what they mean. So our next color here that we're going to talk about is a brownish red color. Now, this is a color signature for the preparation of giving birth. And it also helps with the muscles, the blood, and uterine hemorrhaging. Now, these plants in Native American cultures have been known to bring down the baby, so to speak. And our example comes from actually Cherokee medicine, which is Tyrillium, and that was used to stop postpartum bleeding. Now, I do understand in the beginning of this video, I said we're not going to just say this plant is good for that. However, we do find ourselves in a world of paradox. So to just explain how these signatures work, I am going to give you an example of what it is used for in hopes that it's just going to like light up some different parts and help you connect some dots. Our next color we're going to talk about is burgundy. Now, these plants are said to build the blood. We can tell that by their color. And by contrast, red helps treat heat in the blood or a lack thereof. So our example here is beetroot. So the next color to explore is red. Now, the root chakra, remember, governs the blood. And plants that have reddish flowers on them, like the rose in our example, are blood purifiers. Another thing about the color red is it actually suggests that this plant has the ability to tone the tissues through astringency. We will be talking more about the different actions like astringency in future videos. So don't worry if you're not quite sure what that means yet, you will soon. Our next flower is orange. So these flowers are said to energize the sacral chakra and sexual energy. So our example here is the tiger lily, which has been used across many cultures and traditions as a gynecological remedy. Let's think for a second where some of these traditions actually got their information from. Now, they might not have called it the doctrine of signatures, but it was the way that they were taught how to read the language of the plants. So, really, all of our traditions are talking about the same thing. So, our next color to talk about would be kind of an orange yellow color. So, the orange yellow signifies that this plant would target the liver and the gallbladder area. So, safflower is our example here. All right, the next color we're going to talk about is yellow. Yellow is a color that energizes the solar plexus, and that would also mean the organs of the upper abdomen, particularly the liver and the gallbladder. And dandelion is an excellent remedy for liver and gallbladder support. You could make, if you were wanting to help improve your liver and gallbladder functions, you could potentially make a tincture or a tea out of dandelion and use the tincture as a digestive bitter, or you could simply just drink the tea before you eat, allowing the bitter flavor to touch your tongue, and then a whole plethora of different functions, basically getting your body ready for digestion happens all just by tasting a bitter flavor. Okay. The next plant that we are going to talk about are ones that fall in the like light green or yellowish green color category. So, being that it is a mix between green and yellow, it is said that it would target the diaphragm area, which is the area between the heart and the solar plexus. It's kind of just mixing them together. So an example here would be the linden tree, which helps calm the nerves and innervate the heart, the diaphragm, and the solar plexus. Linden has another signature that I'm actually going to share with you shortly. Because remember, there can be, I can't say there's going to be, but generally there is more than one signature per plant. And actually, the leaves could have a signature, the roots could have a completely different signature, and the stem could have a different signature, all within one plant. It's actually pretty neat, if you ask me. So next, we are going to talk about green. So green being kind of in the middle of the color spectrum between light and dark, what would that mean? Well, it would have an ability to balance and heal the heart, opening it up for compassion, awareness, and sensitivity to the earth herself. And our example here would be lady's mantle. Next, we have the color blue. And remember, blue governs the throat chakra, which is overseeing our breath and breathing. In our example here, balloon flower could be an asthma treatment. Now, in the blue category, we also have bright blue, which bright blue is going to be indicating to you that the plant is spasmolytic, or in other words, an antispasmodic, such as lobelia. Remember, I'll be going over what spasmodic means at a different time. So just for now, just know that it means antispasmodic. So the next group of colors we're going to talk about would be purple. Purple, lavender, violet, even in indigo. These are all colors that energize the third eye, which is connected to the functioning of the hypothalamus. So in our example here is pasque flower, which is an example of an excellent balancing agent. Mouthful that it almost didn't. You know what? Just even look at this. And look, you can see that the colors are very, very nicely balanced in this plant. Yes, there's a lot of purple, but it's balanced out with quite a bit of yellow, right? And just a little bit of contrast of purple again, compared to this flower, our balloon flower, which isn't very balanced in its center and with the petals. So, balancing agent. The next color I want to talk about is white. So white is the only color that actually contains all colors. And it is also the color of a pale flower growing in the shade, because sometimes the color is coming from the sun. So in order to classify white plants as ones that are for the crown, they'd actually need to have another crown signature, like that of the white lotus, which looks like a crown, right? I'm not sure if there's another more obvious crown signature. Now, some flowers over here, like our milk thistle, milk thistle has been associated with mother's milk in many, many different traditions across our planet. So next, explore a different piece of this. Color correspondence between body and plant. Pretty straightforward. So red is now, we're going to say that these are general rules and guidelines because as we know, nature does what she wants. So generally, when you encounter a plant of these different colors, this is what it probably is going to help with. So red would be pointing to blood, inflammation, and heat in the tissues. Blue, that would point to coldness and air or a lack thereof. Yellow points to liver and bile as well as the solar plexus. Purple would point to stagnation and toxicity. Orange would point to liver and bile as well as the sexual fire. Yellow-black points to stagnant bile remedy. White would be to bones, teeth, or the nerves. And black to necrosis or tissue death. So it's just another way that we can look at colors and how we can use them to heal the body. So that's the first half of our little presentation here. That is just a little bit on color. So now let's explore leaf shapes. And I'm not going to be covering every single leaf shape that you are going to find on our planet. You would probably be here for a little while, but I'm going to cover just a main few, at least ones that I find handy to know. So the first type of leaf that I would like to talk about would be lush, abundant greenery, which would suggest that the plant has a strong vital force or etheric force. So it could be shaped like a parasol type canopy, such as that we would find on the horse chestnut. which is an illustration to the plant's ability to create its own energetic space and protect itself from the drying out forces of wind and sun. Now, just imagine what that can do for inside the body. Perhaps if you have a little bit too much wind, maybe this can help you out. Wind, think gas. That's an excellent example of excess wind. So, moving on, we're going to talk about the periwinkle plant here, which is known for its invasive growth. Invasive growth is a signature for cancer fighting properties, such as those found in periwinkle. We have our linden tree back. So, the overall shape of a plant can point to a couple different signatures. So, we're going to look at the linden tree here. When it's full grown, it actually resembles an upside down heart. Take a look at the leaves here. These also look like a heart. What does this mean? The linden tree is an excellent heart calming plant. So anything really with the signature of looking like a heart can help just that. So large, heavy leaves would signify a predominance of the earth element within that plant. Remember our map of creation that we shared last week? This is how that fits in. So this is commonly found in tropical plants. So large leaves would be a signature for surface area and gas exchange or your breathing. So elecampane is an excellent remedy for the breath. So the next leaf shape that I want to talk about are just these broad, round leaves that are kind of shaped like water drops. Those would be a signature for the water element within the plant. So water lilies are our example here. Water lily is an excellent remedy for candida because candida requires an internal sogginess to the tissue in order to thrive. So next, we're going to talk about blades. Blades are just thin, narrow leaves that are typically found in grasses. This shape is pointing to a signature of it being silica rich. And silica has many, many benefits to the body, such as promoting healthy skin, hair, and nails. So horsetails is our example. I have had great success with different things I've been using for hair health that has had horsetails in it. I will definitely be sharing some of those recipes on this channel and just making sure they're tweaked just right. So next, let's talk about contracted narrow or needle-like leaves. So that you can kind of see how just small the yarrow leaves are on here. So what that's doing is that is actually pointing us to a signature of this plant having a high predominance of air and fire because it is pointing to its high essential oil contact, highly aromatic, high in essential oils. So yarrow is an excellent remedy to stop bleeding. I made a healing salve. The recipe was on this channel, and I used a yarrow infused oil with a beeswax, and it was supposed to be for if there was a cut. And I'll tell you what, I used some on my partner. He had kind of cut his foot and scratched it pretty bad where it was bleeding. And we put some of this yarrow salve on it, and it actually healed it up a lot quicker than if we hadn't have put anything on it. So just something to think about. All right, now let's talk about succulent leaves, such as those found in our example of the aloe plant. So, the leaves of the succulent actually are a signature for that plant's ability to store and withhold water. We know aloe to be an excellent remedy for sunburned skin. This is why the leaves are telling you what it's doing. Even just think for a moment, and I'm going to touch more on this next time when we talk about the environmental signatures, but the aloe plant thrives in the desert. The desert is where you would most likely need this plant. So sometimes where the plant is growing is one of its signatures. But like I said, we're going to get more into that next week when we talk about the sensory experience and environment. So when we encounter leaves that, if you kind of look, have this little white mealy substance on them that comes off if you touch it, what that is a signature for sores and ulcers, such as that found in white goosefoot. Moving on, sharply toothed leaves would indicate a pain relieving effect, such as that found in horse chestnut. Even just looking at this, another signature that you could pick up from it would be ball of nerves, is what's coming to mind when I see this. Somebody who's just like, just tightly wound and just potentially something like um, sweet chestnut could help you. Now, we only have a couple more to go over. We are going to now just touch on visibly veined leaves, as you can kind of see. What that's a signature for would be a nerve remedy, especially when you pull some of these leaves apart and you begin to see these white nerve strands emerging. Plantain is an excellent example. So next we have our two-lobed leaves, which are a signature for our bilaterally lobed organs, which would be our brain and our lungs. So just look at this. It kind of even resembles the lungs on the leaf of this ginkgo plant. Okay, next we have sets of three leaves. Okay, these point to gynecological remedies because the triangle is actually a symbol for the female sexual organ. So, our example here of wild ginger actually has a uterine shape. And not only that, when I look at it, this shape here kind of actually reminds me of a fetus in a womb. So, yes, it is definitely a uterine remedy. So, in our last leaf shape that I'm wanting to go over today, it would be kind of the leaves that are more hand shaped. So, look at devil's claw here for a moment. And hand shaped, but a hand that's kind of been all crippled from arthritis is what this looks like to me. And devil's claw is an excellent remedy for just that. All right, so I'm just going to stop sharing here. So this has been just a portion of the leaf shapes that you will encounter. And my goal is just to provide you with a good starting point within your studies. So join me next week as we begin to explore the sensory experience and approach and the environmental signatures. So comment down below and let me know What are your takeaways from this? What is something that these plants were screaming out to you and signaling to you as I was just going over some of their colors or leaf signatures? So I would like to thank you for spending this time with me. And until next time, may you find peace wherever you are.